Ready? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivakacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Well, I thought it was just going to be me and Dimitri. The crowds have arrived. Haribol, Michelle. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
On this third day of March 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text number 40, page 107. Neha Bikrama Nashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpam. I'm sorry, page 107? Oh, you have a different pagination. Sorry. Apyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Michelle. Neha Bhikkamanashosti Pratyavayo Navidyate Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Prabhu, did you want to try? Did you want to try? Okay. Anyone in Zoom land? I don't know if there is a Zoom land. Huh?
Neha Bhikkamanashosti
Neha Bhikkamanashosti
Pratyavayo na vidyate
Pratyavayo Navidyate
Svalpam api asya dharmasya
Svalpamapyasya Dharmasya
Trayate mahato bhayat.
Trayate Mahato Bhayat. Na, there is not. Iha, in this yoga. Abhikrama, in endeavoring. Nashaha, loss. Asti, there is. Pratyavayaha, diminution. Na, never. Vidyate, there is. Suopam, a little. Api, although. Asya, of this. Dharmasya, occupation. Trayate, releases. Mahataha, from very great. Bhayat, danger. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Purport: activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Jamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:5-17. I'll say, you say. Chakva swadharmam chadanam bhujang hare bhajan napakpo tapate tato yadhi yatra kvava bhadrama mushtikim kovarta apto abhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing this work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmin or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So I remember first reading this verse, and it was one of the most encouraging verses I've ever read. Because here Krishna is saying, any little... What does swalpam mean? Swalpam means su-alpam. Alpam means a little bit. Su-alpam means a little tiny bit. Even the little beginning in Krishna consciousness. Because he's talking about, what is this Dharma that he's talking about? He's just introduced this idea of Buddhi Yoga in the previous verse. And how does he translate or define Buddhi Yoga? Basically Bhakti Yoga. Buddhi Yoga is Bhakti Yoga. But it's interesting that the emphasis there is on the intelligence, obviously, Buddhi Yoga. So when you think about it, the whole process of Krishna consciousness, it depends upon the application of the intelligence. Because even the basic principle of concentrating, of hearing the holy name as you chant japa, all of that is a function of the intelligence. If you're going to focus on something, it's your intelligence you're bringing to bear. Because the mind is going to jump here and there, left alone, right? It's going to like, oh, go there, enjoy this, now forget that. Go over here, wait a minute, that's painful, let's go. It's constantly making these judgments. But the intelligence is meant to guide the mind and to say, let's just stop and absorb ourselves in this. Otherwise, you never get anything done. Really, the application of attention is how you accomplish something. It means you're doing something over a period of time and not doing other things that may draw your attention, you see. So, Buddhi Yoga means, as Prabhupada refers to in the 10th chapter, Tesham satati yuktanam buddhatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamapiyandite. There's the word Buddhi Yoga. And what that's the verse number 3 of the 4 essential verses of the Bhagavad Gita. 10, 8, 9, 10, and 11. It's good to review those every now and then. And what is Krishna saying there? He answers the injunction, if you will, of the Brahma Sutra, the Vedanta Sutra. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now, having come to the human form of life, one should inquire into the absolute truth, Brahman. What is that Brahman? What is it? Janmadyasya yataha. That's the next sutra. That's number 2. Janma means birth or creation. Adi means etc. What is the etc.? Maintenance and destruction. There's 3 things going on in relation between the absolute truth and this world, and that is creation, maintenance, destruction. Janmadyasya yataha. So one has to inquire into where did everything come from. How is this all maintained? And ultimately, what happens when it's all destroyed? And the answer is, Krishna gives in the first of those 4 verses. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I have created everything. Everything you see is coming from me. And then he flips around and comes from the other side, from our side, and says, from me everything comes. Now they sound redundant, but they're not. Because one is from Krishna's point of view. I am creating everything. And the other side is from our point of view. Where did it all come from? Oh, it came from Krishna. It's a subtle difference. So then that's the sambandha. That's the relationship. In other words, Krishna is saying, I am that God who's created everything. And it's all related to me because it's all my energies. How they're working is very complicated, but they're Krishna's energies. And we're part of those energies, and our mission is to understand our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead in great detail. What is our specific relationship and what is our eternal function in the spiritual world? That's all a mystery to us now. It's been hidden since time immemorial. So that's sambandha. That's abhideya. Aham sarvasya bhavavo mattak sarvam pavartate. That's sambandha. Itimam yo bijanati. No. Aham sarvasya bhavavo mattak sarvam iti bhajate mam. Boy, I'm really getting old. All right, let's just flip to 10:8. What do we find? That's right after here. Okay, he says, Itimat bhava jante mam buddha bhava samanvita. That I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So you see that he's saying, I am the source of everything emanates from me. That's sambandha. And bhajante mam, the intelligent worship me, that's abhideya. They're practicing devotional service. They work, and what is the essence of that abhideya? That's the next verse. It is matchitta madgata prana bodhiyantak parasparam katayantastraman tushyanti chadamandicha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. So this is Sadhu Sangha. This is text 9 of chapter 10, page 31 in most of your books. And then what's the result? Krishna is not a dead stone. He responds. And what does he do? The first verse, this is text 10 now, the one I referred to. He will get Buddhi Yoga. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamapi yanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So Krishna is within our heart, and he sees we're making an effort. We're thinking about him, we're meeting about and discussing him, we're having Bhagavad Gita class. So he gives us the intelligence so that we can proceed in this process. He's enlightening us. And then, really, the clincher is text 11. Teshav evana kampartam maham jnana jantam han nashiyam yatma bhavasto jnana dipena basvata. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So this is a very personal verse. Anukampa. Anukampa is a word that means special mercy. So I always said, well, because Sanskrit is such a wonderful language, how is this put together? Kampa is one of the ecstatic symptoms. It's shivering, right, in ecstasy. So anukampa means shivering or in sympathy with someone else. Anu means to follow. So we're suffering, and Krishna is empathetic, and so he destroys our ignorance with he's inside with the shining lamp of knowledge. So those 4 verses is worth studying because they're the essential verse. And then the next verse, Arjuna recognizes Krishna as the supreme Brahman, Padam Brahma, Padam Dhamma, Bhavitram. That's also very important. So back to our text 40, because the tie between the two is this Buddhi Yoga, which isn't mentioned here, but in this yoga, the second word of the verse is Iha, not Iha. In this yoga, that's the Buddhi Yoga from text 39. So there's no loss and there's no diminution. In other words, there may not be a loss right away, but it can diminish over time. But this is no. It doesn't diminish and there's no loss. Even a little advancement. So you can see how when Prabhupada did come to America, he had to be absorbed in this kind of verse where even if I just help one person, even if they just hear the holy name one time, this will be this planting the seed because he knows it's coming to him as a pure representative. So this is enlivening him as a preacher, even though he started in such humble circumstances. Everything he did, every book he sold, everyone who saw him, everyone who heard him was benefited. Swalpam, even a tiny little bit. What to speak of the whole explosion, Hare Krishna explosion, of that book by Hayagriva, that Prabhupada said he didn't really know how it would play out. And he would, at the beginning there, he would go down to the pier to find the boat, the return trip. When he was speaking, he said, "I've arranged to stay for a few months." That was his plan. But so he wasn't making much headway. He's uptown, downtown. He's in the Bowery. So he was showing, but he never got on a boat. And finally, they asked him, "Well, Swami, you keep coming down, but you never get it." "Yes, my spiritual master ordered me. I have to try." So this is very encouraging for us because sometimes we feel, boy, this process is kind of difficult. There's so many distractions. It's very hard to be austere. There's a million different things that we feel may be impediments. But here it says that even just a little progress is to your eternal account. You'll start from percentage number 2 if you just make 1%. But also it should see, well, okay, let's see if we can make as much advancement as possible rather than prolong the agony. That's the idea. That's why Prabhupada always talks about, you'll go back to God in this one life. You just do this, And Krishna also encourages, Janma karma tame divyame vimyoteti tattvataha. If you just understand the transcendental nature of my birth and activities, then at the end of life you'll just come to me. You won't come back again, So, let's go through this purport, because these are all very rich. So Prabhupada, now activating Krishna consciousness, acting for the benefit of Krishna with activation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning cannot be lost at any stage. Now one note on this translation. I think I mentioned this last night, but some of you weren't here. This word bayat means mostly fear. Bajahore manashi nandanandana habayatadana. It's right in Prabhupada's name. Abhaya means fearless. The fearless lotus feet. Now, how can feet have fear? But no, the word fearless means engendering fearlessness. In other words, we can become fearless by taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. So they're fearless lotus feet. So this word bayat means fear, but it can also mean danger, and that's how it's translated here. It's a peculiarity of Sanskrit, that which produces something can also be part of the meaning. Just like we have gati. Gati is a goal, but it's also the means to the goal, right? So bayat is danger, which produces fear. So it means both things. And therefore, in Prabhupada's translation, you always remember, English is his second language, and he's translating from the Sanskrit. The most dangerous type of fear, so he's got the two things in there. Bayat can mean danger and fear. But in English, fear can't mean danger. In Sanskrit, bayat can mean fear or danger. So Prabhupada transferred those two, but it doesn't really work. And so really what's happening here is a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most fearful type of danger. And what is that danger? Who knows the answer? Losing the human form of life. That's the greatest danger we face, because it just prolongs the agony. Then we have to make our way up again to the human form and contact the devotee and so forth. But we've already assured ourselves of the human form of life. Even just to come to my the classes here, the only real value, basically, I'm sure, is just to read the purports, and we know that we're on the safe side. So any little bit. So you're assured of the human form of life, and not only that, but the human form of life in which you'll take up Krishna consciousness again, because nothing is lost. So you'll take up from percentage number 2 or 5 or 10 or wherever how far you got in this lifetime. So this is a very encouraging verse, and should lead us to be enthusiastic to practice Krishna consciousness, because it's all to our eternal bank account. And realize that anything you do on the material plane is ultimately taken away from you. Mrityu sarvaharashchaham. Prabhupada would quote that line all the time from the 10th chapter. Krishna appears as death for the atheists and for the demons, takes everything away. It takes the body away, it takes the family away, it takes the money, the fame, everything is gone. Because then you're born, maybe, probably not a human life. And so what do you have of what you accumulated that was related to this body? Nothing. It's just like a dream. You wake up from a dream and it's all gone, dissipated as if it didn't exist. So what's the better investment? Because we're all investors. We're investing time, energy, attention. The best investment is Krishna consciousness. There's no loss or diminution. In other words, you can't lose. And what can you win? The greatest thing. Back home, back to Godhead. So therefore we should, the idea is this Dharma, we should become serious about it and practice as hard as possible to advance as far as possible. Understanding that, this is the way I understand that, okay, it's unlikely I'm going to go back to God at this lifetime. But at least try as hard as possible, and you're assured that you'll start from that point next life. Any questions on this important verse? Actually, I do want to refer, if there are no questions, the verse that Prabhupada quotes, it's very interesting, because if you recall, the previous verses were all about how Arjuna should practice his swadharma. Right? Swadharma bhaviksha nabhikam bhadamahasi. Happy are those kshatriyas who get this kind of battle unsought, yadvichaya, by the force of providence. Because remember, it's a win-win. If you are victorious, you'll enjoy the kingdom on earth. And if you get killed, you go to heaven. Where's the loss, you see? That's the calculation. So Krishna is encouraging Arjuna to take up his swadharma. Swadharma means that which is most suitable for your psychophysical nature. Arjuna is a kshatriya through and through. He was trained, he has the mentality for it, he's very expert at it, it's perfect. That's his swadharma. But he wants to give it up. Drops his bow, he doesn't want to fight because he's going to have to maybe kill those dear to him on the other side. So that's why he says, karpa nidosho pahata swabhava. Swabhava means the psychophysical nature. Swadharma is what you do according to the psychophysical nature. So he says, due to this miserly weakness, this miserly has stolen away, upahata, my swabhava, my nature as a kshatriya. He's sitting on the chariot, he's crying, he's trembling. This is not kshatriya. He's paralyzed. So he doesn't want to be in that situation. Then what's the solution? Turn to Krishna, who's on the chariot, and surrender as the guru, and that's what he does. Please enlighten me. Tell me what I can do now for my ultimate good. Shreya, niksheyasa, nishtitam, for sure, for certain, because I'm confused. Basically, he's saying I'm confused. And that's how we should feel. We should feel that we're blank slates, that we thought we knew so much, we were doing this, doing that, but really it was just keeping us entangled in this world. The perfect model is Sanatana Goswami as he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya. Kayami, who am I? Why are the threefold miseries giving me so much trouble? People call me a pundit, and I think I'm a pundit. But if I don't know the answer to these questions, I'm just a fool. So he's blank slate. He takes the straw in his mouth. He appears in very simple clothes. He's given up his position as the right-hand prime minister of the king, basically. And he's now come in as a humble disciple of Lord Chaitanya. Please enlighten him. For 2 months, Lord Chaitanya just pours it all into him. And it later appears as his beautiful writings and his teachings. So this is the ideal of how we can perfect our lives. Now, sometimes our swadharma is not that becomes an impediment. It's not devotional service. We're in a situation where, so here this verse says, if you give up your swadharma. Now, in Arjuna's case, acting in his swadharma was devotional service. You see the difference? So this Tyaktva swadharma charanamajanya bhajan. If one worships the lotus feet of Hari, having given up his swadharma, but apakva. Now, this word apakva is like, the word swapacha, it's a famous word, right? Dog eater. Well, you have to cook them first. So swapacha means the dog cooker, and it's implied that they eat them, right? So that it's a low, station in human life. So this word apakva means it's not cooked. In other words, your devotion is not mature, but you patate, you fall away from it. So then he says, yatra kava abhadram. Where is there any abhadra here? Because of nehaprikramanashosti. You didn't lose anything. It's unfortunate, but your next life you'll take up. Abud. amushyakim, for him. But ko varta apto, where is there any gain for one who does not worship anyone, the Lord, abhajatam, and sticks to his swadharma? That doesn't help you. Just to be a very paka vaishya, very successful businessman or farmer, but you're not worshiping Krishna, what's the value? You see, unfortunately, that's left out here in the little translation he gives. The part about abhajatam. What can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly, but doesn't worship Hari? You see that? That's implied there. I'm going to check the original transcript and see if that was left out. And we'll maybe restore that. Okay, any questions on this important verse? Discussion? Oh, Dimitri Prabhu.
I know that responsibility of a guru is to deliver the disciples, and if it doesn't happen, if somebody stays off the track, the guru has to come back again, and it's such a huge responsibility. And even though the guru might have a qualification to go back to Godhead, but because of a disciple, it's not going to be granted to him. So it's just like, how does one should feel about that? I was thinking of it.
I stand in awe of those who take that responsibility. It reminds me of the kind of mood that you find in the most perfect extreme example is Vasudev Dutt, who wasn't a guru per se, but he was prepared sincerely to take all the sinful reactions of all the people in the universe upon himself so that they could go back to God and he would stay here. And when he actually said that and he meant it, the unbelievable compassion of the heart of a pure Vaishnava like that, Lord Chaitanya started crying and embraced him. Don't worry, you don't have to take on all the sinful reactions. They're going to be delivered anyway, because by chanting the holy name. So that is a inconceivable mercy of the great devotees, that they're so compassionate that they're ready to undertake repeated births in order to deliver disciples, to deliver whoever takes shelter of them. Because they take birth again, maybe someone else is going to take shelter of them. You know what I mean? In other words, it sounds like a very difficult position. So it's just part of the inconceivable, compassion in the heart of the pure devotees, that they're willing to undergo that kind of austerity. We heard this in a class, I think, recently, that Prabhupada told one of his intimate disciples that soon after he came to America and started America, he really wasn't well. He never was really, fully healed from that horrific stroke he had. But he kept going, and when he found so much success, and his body wasn't cooperating, but he was just overcoming these impediments. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is also like that. And so this is the nature of these great souls. That's why they're so ideal. One of I was never a Christian, but I always remember. But I was in an area where most of the people who I lived were Christians. And so when the school year would come around in December, we would start singing the hymns and Silent Night and the songs about Jesus and this and that. And even though I wasn't a Christian, I always liked that. I always appreciated that mood, because there was the whole idea is this giving mood. The charity, UNICEF. We used to go around these UNICEF things. It's for little kids, and everything. So that giving mood that is personified with Prahlad Maharaj, where he himself has no trouble. That I'm on the other side already on the other side of the river Vaitarani. I'm already in the spiritual world, because wherever I am, I can always chant your glories and merge my consciousness in bliss. But I'm lamenting for all of these pure souls who are trying to enjoy illusory happiness, Maya Sukhaya, and bearing the great burden, the Sanskrit song, of trying to enjoy in this world, and then suffering the reactions to that. So I have to deliver them, and the only way I can do that by giving them you, my Lord. That he says that in the next verse. In other words, he has to introduce them to Lord Nrsingadev, to Bhakti Yoga. So this is the heart of a Vaishnava. is a very peaceful and blissful, but at the same time anxious for those who are God brothers, God sisters. They're all, you know, every soul is precious, but they're suffering. And so it is inconceivable, you know, but that is one of the amazing things of Krishna consciousness, how someone could take on that burden. And I've seen, you know, even my own God brothers who have been doing that, you know, been gurus for years now, you know, many years. And, you know, it's never, let me put it this way, there always seems to be different crises you have to deal with. Personal crises, you know, social crises that are affecting your disciples. You have to figure out how to, there's always that concern. And it's a great burden, but at the same time, it makes you the dearest to Lord Chaitanya, taking on that role. He said, become a guru and deliver this world, deliver this. He said for all of us. Whoever you meet, speak to them about Krishna, teach them about Krishna. And ultimately, there has to be, you know, those who are willing to initiate and take on that role. It is amazing. All right, let's go on. This next verse is really important also. Very, very important verse, because Prabhupada embraced this verse in the commentary to it. Vyavasayatmaka buddhi ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hinantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. Notice how every verse we hear about buddhi. You know, this is twice here. This is all buddhi yoga. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vavasayatmaka intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 2262 states, Shraddha, I'll say you say, Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Ko He Suddhidhan Nishchoy. Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. A little more difficult because it's Bengali, so it's not as phonetic as we're used to. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. I'll say, you say. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. Dhyayanstu vangstasya yashasvi sandhyam. Vande Guru Shri Charanarabindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied. And by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should, therefore, meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day, and offer my respectful obeisances unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So this verse has a special significance for us, because Prabhupada, as he mentions here, that this vyavasayatmaka buddhi is manifested when one takes the order of the spiritual master as his life and soul. That's the actual functional meaning of it. And Prabhupada did that. We recently, I don't know if you've been following this, but Prabhupada first met Bhaktisiddhanta in Calcutta in 1922 at the first temple that he had after completing his vow of chanting 1 billion names. It took him 9 years, and he stayed mostly in Mayapur. But still, in spite of taking all that, to chant 1 billion names means to chant 300,000 names a day. It's really more than that, 64 rounds, a little bit more. To chant 300,000 names, and then after 3 days, you get to 1 million. But you have to have 1,000 of those 3 days. Another 1,000 million is 1 billion, right? And so 1,000 times 3 is 3,000 days, comes out to about 10 years, 9 years. You count it. So that's how long it took him. And he spent, it's at least, Prabhupada said that Haridas Thakur would chant 16 hours a day to get his 300,000 in. And that's at 5 minutes a round. I don't know if you ever tried timing it. I thought, somehow I could fit in 64 rounds in the morning program. It's not that easy. And turns out that you need 5 hours and 20 minutes to chant 100,000 names, the 64 rounds, which was the standard in the Gaudiya Math, without a japa period. I don't know how they did it. We have about 2 hours and we can barely chant 16 rounds. So when you multiply it out, it's about 16 hours a day to chant 300,000 names at 5 minutes a round, which is really fast. So he completed that vow, and then he wanted to preach. There's this pastime that Gorkishore Das Babaji was Bhajananandi, great soul and everything, and he gave us Bhaktisiddhanta, so that was his preaching. But it would be understandable for Bhaktisiddhanta to follow in the footsteps of his guru and become a Bhajananandi. But he was also following the mood of his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who raised him, and it was all about, reviving Lord Chaitanya's movement. That means preaching and making actual devotees and Gaudiya and so on. So he decided to go to Calcutta and start the Gaudiya Math. And the first place he arranged for, after some preaching, was this Ultadanga Road building. And those of you who know the pastime, Prabhupada was convinced to see the sadhu, who was Bhaktisiddhanta, at Ultadanga on the roof. And so he went up to see him, and he was already married. He had 1 child, I think, at that time, and he was working in his business. Chemicals. And but he was very impressed with Bhaktisiddhanta. Bhaktisiddhanta said, why don't you, you're an intelligent young man, why don't you preach the Lord Chaitanya's mission all over the world? And I think he specifically told Prabhupada to preach in English, but that may have come later. And Prabhupada was astounded. He was then following Gandhi's movement. He was wearing khadi, which is a sign, that the cloth was made not in England, but in India. And he had a big argument, he argued against that, saying, what's the point? Until we're independent, they didn't have independence yet. India will not, no matter, they won't listen to us, we're dependent on England. And Bhaktisiddhanta refuted that. He said, no, Krishna consciousness is too urgent. We can't wait for independence or anything else. We need to preach. And Prabhupada describes how he was defeated, but he liked it. and he accepted him as a spiritual master in his heart. And then, after 11 years, he was initiated, and the rest is history, so to speak. But to follow that order of Bhaktisiddhanta, which he gave again at the end, just before Bhaktisiddhanta left the planet, he wrote Prabhupada a letter again. You should preach in English, And I don't know if he had in the letter that he should travel abroad, but that's the way practically he had to do it. And so Prabhupada recognized, this is really what my spiritual master wants me to do. Print books, that was another order that he gave me. If you ever get any money, print books. And the few encounters he had with him personally along this movement. So here, that's what he's speaking about here. That here is Prabhupada now. He's writing this soon after he came. I think he's dictating this. No, actually, these he typed out, the second chapter. And this is probably 67. He's writing this Gita. And the movement has his little fledgling seedlings, He's planted the seeds on the West Coast and the East Coast, And he's seeing that this is really what's impelling him to overcome all the difficulties and persevere. Vyavasayatmaka Buddha, even though there may be some impediment or some failure at first, was the order of his spiritual master. And backed up by the prediction of Lord Chaitanya. In every town and village my name will be chanted, And we can see we're sitting here because of Prabhupada's willingness to undergo all these austerities and Vyavasayatmaka Buddha. So for ourselves, we can embrace this verse, and with this one-pointed will to practice Krishna consciousness at the level we're at, and keep trying to advance, and increase the number of rounds, and decrease the things that are distractions, and do what we know we should do. And this is how we can really advance. And there has to be this spiritual master. The relationship Prabhupada is describing. This last verse is such a key verse of our Guru Vashtaka. Okay, it's getting late. Any questions or comments on this verse? Bhakti and Michelle? Okay. All right, so let's see. All right, I think we have time to read this one. This is Yamimam pushpitam bacham prabhadancha vipashyataha vedabhadra taparta nanyadastiti vadinaha kamatmanak swargapara janma karma palapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim pati. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. Purport. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the karma-kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Jyotishtoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of the Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. As fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions, unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karma-kanda section of the Vedas, it is stated, Apama somam amita abhuma and akshayam havai chatumasya yajinaha sukatam bhavati. In other words, those who perform the 4-month penances become eligible to drink the somaras beverages to become immortal and happy forever. 4-month penances, of course, is chatumasya. Even on this earth, some are very eager to have somaras to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratification. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasures of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nandana Kanana, in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women and having a profuse supply of somaras wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to such material, temporary happiness as lords of the material world. Okay, we don't have time to do the next verse. But Krishna is obviously not in favor of this. He's criticizing this. This is not what the Vedas are all about. This is simply a way of regulating so that people stay on the side, stay with the Vedas. And as they perform those sacrifices, there's some mention and worship of Vishnu, so they're getting some benefit. But it's not Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi that we're looking for. We want to stay fixed on the standard Rupa Goswami set, which is completely free of anyabhilashi dashunyam jnana karma jnanavatam. No desire other than but to please Krishna and advance in our understanding of our eternal relationship with Him. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. So we'll resume on Monday with text number